So, I went back to read this chapter. The chapter that showed us a glimpse of what's kind of going on with One For All. And the reason why I went back to this chapter is because obviously this chapter is very relevant to that information on chapter 192. Now, to kind of dive into what I think is going on here, let's look at this final panel of the latest chapter of My Hero Academia. You see Izuku's entire arm just swell with energy, and his gauntlet, which was built for him to be able to use his hands effectively, just bust instantly. You just see it completely shatter like nothing. And you see this very bizarre, weird, blackish-looking energy/lightning coming out of Izuku, which we have never seen before. If we're comparing to the color that we've seen in the anime, and, color illustrations and all that, it's obvious that this is a different color that we have never seen from Izuku thus far in the series, so something else is definitely going on here, which is very obvious since his gauntlet just shattered like nothing, and we all know by now Izuku is not an individual that does not know how to control One For All. Like, we know for a fact at the very least, even though he gets a little bit reckless and he definitely pushes the limit, and he goes plus ultra, he goes beyond what his body's capable of, we do know when he's trying to stay below the limit or stay at his limit, he will stay there and not go further. So we know for a fact that Izuku didn't just accidentally make a mistake and just shatter his gauntlet like it was nothing. So that's common sense. But to get into what's really going on here, many are probably speculating that right now, looking at the black lightning in this panel just coming off of Izuku, many are probably saying it has something to do with All For One. Because, when you think about the last chapter and All For One talking about how he heard the voice of his brother, and then, you see this chapter with the black lightning coming off of Izuku, it's very reminiscent of what All For One used when he used his black lightning when he was fighting, All Might. So, it's very clear that many could easily make the connection, like the parallel between both of those, and like, okay, so it must be something to do with, All For One. Maybe he's manipulating Izuku somehow, which is a potential possibility. However, I think there's something else going on, and I want to talk about it. So, let's look at these panels here. This is from chapter 192 that came out a while ago. Like I said, it was the first time we really got to see a glimpse of the past between One For All versus All For One, and how the quirk even came about, but also the different, people that are attached to One For All, people that have passed down the legacy of the quirk. And we eventually saw where the original One For All user, All For One's brother, he walked up to Izuku, he's like, oh, you're able to use 20% and all that, and he's like, you're not alone, and, he grabs Izuku's hand, Izuku wakes up, and you see his entire room destroyed, and he's just looking down at his hand. Now, I want you to pay attention real closely to Izuku's position and what he's looking at when it comes to his hand. He's looking at his right hand, obviously. And if you go to the latest chapter, chapter 210, I believe, that just came out, you will see the exact same hand that One For All touched in the dream is the same hand that is now acting up in 210. So there's definitely a correlation right there. It's definitely not something that is not connected. So if I had to assume anything, I'm just, taking a guess, a shot in the dark and assuming something. I'm assuming that when One For All, was talking to Izuku inside of his head, I'm assuming when he put his hand up against Izuku's hand, it made it to where maybe he had full access to use all of his power in that one part of his body. For instance, he is able to go past 20% maybe in his hand or his arm because he has now utilized One For All effectively in some parts, 20% of it, so maybe only 20% of his body can actually fully use One For All, which I guess would say his entire arm or hand, whatever. I'm assuming something like that. Or it's because now, with what One For All did, talking to Izuku, it unlocks something within Izuku to where now he's able to access the true might of what One For All really is. So let's get into that. So speculation, theories, and all that. I'm not saying that this is what is happening. I'm just theorizing. So we can assume that most likely, since the quirk One for All is pretty much about stockpiling. It's about every time, a new person comes in, they gain the strength of everyone else, and then they put their strength on it, and then they pass it down, they gain the strength, so on and so forth. The quirk slowly gets stronger and stronger over time. One for All wasn't a strong quirk when it first came about. It wasn't. It was a very weak quirk, and after many generations, obviously, now we know where it's at. It's insanely powerful. And we saw, kind of how, All Might is, how strong he is, what he was capable of. Just imagine what Izuku can be capable of in the future, because just as a brief FYI, as a reminder, remember, because of the potential of the stockpiling quirk, the stockpiling takes the strength of the individual and then passes it on to the next. So for instance, All Might's strength, all that we saw him be able to do throughout this series already, and then even probably his Prime Might stuff, all of that strength will be passed on to Izuku, plus what Izuku builds up on his own, which I talked about in the past. For instance, All Might's 10% could be Izuku's 7%. Basically, as time goes on, as generations pass and the quirk gets passed on, it's going to get stronger and stronger. And there's been a lot of theories and all that throughout the community of My Hero Academia that if, for instance, hypothetically, if the quirk was to be passed on like indefinitely for years upon years, hundreds upon hundreds of years, thousands of years, it would get to the point where the quirk would be just so strong, probably no human being would be able to even wield the quirk. I mean, look at what's going on with Izuku right now. Izuku's at a point to when he uses the quirk, he has a potential possibility of just completely shattering his body. We saw this since the very beginning of the series, and there's going to become a point, even after Izuku, when he passes it on, the individual users are going to get to the point where if they try to even, let's say, move a centimeter, they're just going to completely wipe out like cities and stuff because they're that strong. And I feel like that's kind of what's going on here. With what's happening with Izuku's arm, because of how strong One For All is and whatever One For All did to him, like the original owner, and, talking to Izuku, most likely the full potential of the stockpiling quirk was unleashed. Because remember, I've talked about this. One For All could have potentially been becoming, sentient, becoming aware of its existence, and as something that, is a lot more than just stockpiling and passing on, power. Maybe it passes on the user's mind, which could explain the avatar-like states. For instance, when the individual users finally pass on and die, they will form in there like an avatar-like state, which would explain why the original One For All user would be able to talk with Izuku, and when I mean the others probably eventually could potentially talk to Izuku, and if All Might was to die, vice versa. You know what I'm talking about. Basically, he could potentially talk to Izuku. I feel like the One For All quirk, there's a lot more to it than obviously has been explained. It's a very mysterious quirk. It's very obvious that All Might doesn't know everything about it, especially after what this chapter revealed. Because apparently, All Might's mentor, she had a dream, a vision with talking with someone covered in black when she was having a dream sequence. And I went back. This is what really made me go back to read chapter 192, just to confirm, who she was potentially talking to. Now, it was kind of obvious that she might have either been talking to One For All or All For One, but I was just wanting to make sure. And after looking at the exchange between Izuku and, One For All, I'm assuming that the person that All Might's teacher saw was not One For All, but All For One. And that's what I'm thinking is going on here. I think, as I've already theorized a while ago, that All For One could be potentially a part of Izuku, like the One For All, since technically he is the one that passed on the quirk, the stockpiling, and gave it to his brother. There's a likely possibility, because of how all of that is, it might have had a lot more than he realized, and he's technically also attached to the quirk, and now he has like this mental linkage with Izuku and the original user of One For All. And that's why he's able to hear the voice, which would explain why All Might's teacher was able to probably see him and probably talk with him, like, saying, "You're not ready yet." That would make a lot of sense, because we do know for a fact that All For One, in some ways, even though he is an evil guy, he loves quirks. He finds them very interesting, and we don't really know the true reason to why he passed on the quirk. of One for All. We know he could have had pity on his brother. We just don't have the full scope of everything. We don't really know everything about All for One. We don't know exactly his full, psyche to why he did that. You can only guess at this point. So he might know a lot more than we do, and because of that, it could explain the reason why, he's hearing the voice of his brother, to also the entire situation why he told All Might's teacher, like, hey, look, you're not ready and all that, because he's fascinated about quirks, and it could be something a lot more that, we've yet to find out. But that is what you can get with that final panel. Now, anyways, let's talk about this chapter and the other parts that happen besides Izuku. So, Monoma. I love him. I've always liked this character, and I complimented him in my last video saying that, Monoma's always a guy that picks on Class A. He's always just saying things, going on a rant, and in some cases, people can kind of get annoyed with him. But many, typically, myself included, tend to forget that he is a very intelligent person. He is someone that is very quick-witted. He is someone that can easily outsmart people, and he can easily win and come on top. And his quirk is very dangerous. Being able to copycat, basically take a quirk from someone and use it, not like All for One take a quirk, but be able to, duplicate a quirk and use it. He's incredibly powerful. He is not someone you can underestimate. And what he was doing to Izuku at the beginning of this chapter was something that showed a very high level of skill. What he said to Izuku was basically one of the worst things you could say to Izuku. He's like, look, Bakugo, he blames himself for All Might and all that. The very man that brought down the symbol of peace. What he said hurts. It's painful what, he said to Izuku. And we know now how Izuku is with Bakugo, the relationship, and the whole reason why a dispute happened, let's say, at the end of Season 3, was because the whole reason of what happened to the symbol of peace, All Might. How he fell from grace, and he no longer can be a hero. And a lot of ways you can contribute to what happened to All Might was thanks to Bakugo. I mean, Izuku's also to blame, and yes, All Might eventually would have not been able to fight anymore, but Bakugo definitely sped up the process. And Izuku sped up the process as well. It's not just Bakugo, but Izuku is also at fault. I'm not just blaming one, I'm blaming both. But the point is, though, what Monoma said was something that would really get underneath Izuku's skin. And you can see in that moment with his glare at Monoma, he was really angry. He was legitimately angry, which brings into question, once again, what is going on with his arm? Was it because of his rage, his emotions coming out, and maybe One for All was stopping him, or, he couldn't control it because of his emotions, or is there something else going on? Regardless, though, Monoma proved himself right there. He was trying to manipulate Izuku to talk back, say something, for Shinzo could brainwash him, or Monoma, if he has Shinzo's quirk, he could brainwash, Izuku. So, yeah, it's a very interesting situation. I really like how Monoma is being displayed in this arc. It's making me happy with Horikoshi's decisions. Now, when it comes to everybody else, when it comes to, Mineta, Mina, Ochako, and all of them, basically, they're in some trouble right now. They really don't really have much they can really do against Class B, because, look, Shinzo is effectively ruining their teamwork. They can't just stop talking, because if they did, it would ruin all chances of being able to counterplay against an enemy team, and so because of that, they do need to keep talking. So many might be a little bit upset that Mineta, Mina, and Ochako are still talking in this chapter, but they have to talk. If they don't talk, then it's going to be impactful to where they're not going to be able to do anything and call out things. However, it is still dangerous. Remember what was happening in the first round. With Shinzo's presence, regardless if he can pull off his quirk or not, his presence will always be there. He will always have a powerful presence to where, legit, you will always have this feeling of, at any moment, when anyone's talking, I could be potentially brainwashed. I need to watch who I reply to. And so, even if he's not in that area, the presence of Shinzo is always there. He has really good crowd control. He can easily shut down a team from really communicating or taking a moment to think, which could slow down their thought process, and then, you know, they're caught with their pants down and taken out, which is kind of in a way what happened in this chapter. Now, obviously, we did not get to see Shinzo at all in this chapter, which I'm assuming he is around Izuku, because he did say he was going to deal with him, but even then, though, like I said, the presence of Shinzo being even on the team is still very impactful. Now, in terms of the quirks, we saw Yui's quirk and all that, and the other quirk. We had one. Yui's quirk was about size. She was able to legitimately shrink objects down, and that anything that touches her, and like change the size of it. So it's incredibly powerful quirk, and if I am correct, Yui's design was actually supposed to be Ochiko's original design. I could be wrong there, correct me in the comments below, but apparently Yui's design was supposed to be Ochiko's design, which is pretty cool. However, I still prefer Ochiko's new design compared to Yui's design, to be completely honest. I mean, I like the hat, but I personally prefer Ochiko's design. Now, we also have, like, I think I have the name pulled up here. Let's see. We have, Yanagi's, Poltergeist, which is basically telekinesis. It's an okay quirk. I mean, it's nothing crazy. Basically, moving objects in a limited range, and then apparently a person to only one person at a time. It's okay. It's not an insane quirk compared to everything else we have seen from Class B or even Class A, but it still could be very powerful and impactful depending on its application in a fight, so I can't really knock it. It's just, it's very basic for, you know, ability in any type of series, so yeah. Now, another quirk that was introduced is Shota's Twin Impact. Now, I want to read the description. He can recreate a previous attack at the same exact location. The second strike is several times stronger than the first one. Now, this dude's quirk is very powerful, because if he's able to land multiple consecutive hits and then hit with that stronger attack, that would be incredibly deadly. Like, this man definitely could have a really good strong finisher move to just wipe someone out, depending on how strong his initial strike was. I do think Shota's quirk is definitely something with a lot of potential, depending, like I said, on how it's used, but yeah, he's definitely out of all of them I think you should watch out for. Now, looking at both teams, now that I've talked about the quirks, it's very clear that Class B has a lot of long-range quirks. Like, they can legit just stay back and keep firing from a distance, and you'll never find them. And that puts Izuku's team at a very big disadvantage. Izuku is a guy that has to get up close and personal. Yes, he has a long-range attacks, but overall, he is a brawler. He has to get up close. Ochiko has to get up close to use her abilities. Yes, she can float objects and push them towards people, but overall, Ochiko needs to get up close to, you know, even affect people. And Minato is the exact same way. Even though you can use crowd control type great balls, throw them around, stick people, he still needs to be close to really do anything. Mina is pretty much the exact same way. So, it's kind of like long-range fighters up against, you know, close-range fighters. And it's pretty unbalanced in a way. Yes, Izuku's team is balanced, which was stated in this chapter, but it doesn't mean their team has an advantage. Even though Izuku is a powerhouse, and, you know, he's able to go in and he could potentially handle all of them 5v1 if he was to get in a straight-up brawl, it doesn't mean he's going to be able to get in that brawl. I mean, regardless of what's going on with his quirk and, you know, the Black Lightning coming out, even if that didn't happen, it doesn't mean he automatically won, because the way the team is and how they're long range, it definitely puts Izuku at a disadvantage, and everyone else as well, as long as that they can continue to find their location. But that's pretty much about it when it comes to this chapter of My Hero Academia. Let me know your thoughts. If you enjoy my content, you know, please subscribe. If you like this video, please leave a like. And if you want to get notified for whenever I upload a video, please click the bell icon down below. And with that, Chibi out.